Hi guys, I'm Hugo Rivera, Vice President of Marketing of Audioholics, and we are here with
Gene Del Sala, President of Audioholics.
Awesome, Gene. Today I recommend we talk about surround systems and how many speakers you actually need to be able to set up your home theater, because there's a lot of confusion. We're getting a lot of emails from people via Facebook and all of our other social media. And people are confused. I mean, people see that there are all these options to get 5, 6, 7 different speakers, They have no clue. They're talking about, sound bars. They're talking about, now we even have TVs that are like,
They're curved, yeah.
They're curved, so
Curve is a new fashion these days.
Yeah, apparently. At any rate, let's go ahead and discuss that and see what the bare minimums. Let's start with that. What is the bare minimum to have a nice home theater set up at home?
Well, the bare minimum, obviously, is first of all, you start out with your TV. You get an AV receiver that does surround processing. Dolby Digital is the basic discrete surround format. Now they have True HD, and now they have Atmos.
Yeah.
DTS is all different flavors of it. So I would say the basic bare minimum is you want to get a discrete 5.1 system in your home. That means you're going to have 5 speakers, which is the 5 channels: the left, center, right, rear left, and then you're going to have the 0.1, which is your subwoofer channel. And that'll give you a pretty good enveloping experience, discrete surround sound system like that. And my philosophy, a lot of it depends on what your preference is and what your budget is. You got to deal with budget, you got to deal with room size, you got to deal with where you can place the speakers in a room, because
Sure.
Let's face it, not everybody can put 6-foot towers in a room.
Yeah, for sure.
Or they can't put a bookshelf speaker on a stand in a rear.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you got to determine what's your listening habits. Do you listen to music more than movies, or do you watch movies more than music?
Right.
Because it's easier to build a cheap system that does okay on home theater but not so great on music than it is to do a really good music system, which anytime you do a good music system, 9 times out of 10 it's going to do well in home theater too.
Right.
Because you could hear more of the differences. You can hear the weaknesses in products when you listen more to music than you just listening to Transformers shooting up Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because that's artificial effects.
Right.
So, my theory here is I'm a kind of guy that doesn't recommend quantity over quality.
Right.
So I see a lot of people now, they're going nuts with the Dolby Atmos fad, or any fad, because now it's all 3D. First it was 3D video, now it's 3D sound. So these people want to set up 9, 10, 12 speakers in their room, and they're buying these little tiny speakers, and you're limited with dynamic range for that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are discounting the fact that 60% of the entire movie theater experience, or the home theater experience, is the bass.
Yeah.
So I would never recommend adding more speakers without first getting good bass in your room and a good 5-channel experience going.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to have your bass maximized, your subwoofer, you better choose the right one.
Or multiple subwoofers. I mean, it's really better if you can get 2 subs in a room. See, I'm all about not building a single sweet spot in a theater. I'd rather have every seat a good seat. That's an old THX mantra. And my concern now is a lot of people are setting up these systems where they're just setting it all up, all firing into one location.
Yeah.
And you got to have all these mother-in-law seats.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, over here I'm seeing 5 seats already.
Yeah.
And the little one over there, so you have 6 really. So I mean, if you just have one sweet spot, well, the rest of the people are getting kind of like, gypped. So
yeah, and that's what we're learning now is, in the past, everybody's been putting wall-mounted surround speakers a couple of feet above ear level. Either they use dipole or bipole kind of speakers to diffuse the sound a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because if you sit too close to a surround channel, it's going to be so localized and distracting that all the sound's going to pan to that one area, and you're going to be like listening to that one speaker. Well, now the trend is to put a bookshelf speaker at ear level because they want to fire Atmos drivers up at the ceiling and bounce the sound around.
Right. And
what we've been finding out, and you could check up our video on our CEDIA demo experience. Mm-hmm. But what we're finding out in these cases is they're really setting up a theater for a single sweet spot. And I frown on that. I'd rather have every seat a good seat. So like I said before, if you can do 5 quality speakers, especially if you're listening to music, you want speakers that are very dynamically capable. Mm-hmm. You want speakers that are timbre matched, at least the front 3 channels in terms of the same frequency response, dynamic capabilities, dispersion characteristics. you want the pans when they go from left, center to right to sound uniform as best as possible.
Right. Now, with that said, what is your take on sound bars? Because I'm getting a lot of questions about sound bars as well.
Sound bars is another, that hit the scene a few years ago. I mean, they've been around for a while, but the market was just really ramming them down our throats in the last 5 years. The only time I recommend a sound bar is when you can't do a discrete speaker solution, because in my opinion, nothing's as good as the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could be good. They're definitely a cut above the speakers you get in a TV. But if you're a music guy like we are, a sound bar is usually not going to cut it. I mean, you could spend $2 or $3 on a sound bar, and they do a pretty good job of giving you a surround experience, but you're not doing high fidelity listening,
right?
Like you would with a good pair of speakers and a sub and discrete system.
I think the bottom line is that it depends on what kind of listener you are. If you really have a high taste for sound,
yes,
then you have to go with a 5.1,
obviously.
Right. Now, if you're into MP3s and stuff, I'm guessing a soundbar
then it's anything goes at that point.
Your cell phone may do just quite well,
Yeah, just to recap, guys, what I would suggest is build the system in over time. If you want to get all the latest surround formats, if you want to support Dolby Atmos, buy the Dolby Atmos receiver now, okay? But start out, budget yourself, spend as much money as you can on the front channels, the center channel, get that right, because man, you're going to regret it if you get this little rinky-dink center channel that only sounds good if you're sitting on axis and not off axis, and then you start adding speakers all around the room because you want to have, these thunder effects bouncing off the ceiling.
Yeah, you got to get the basics right. Yeah.
Right. So pre-wire, you could pre-wire the ceiling for the in-ceiling speakers. You could pre-wire around the room, even if you don't use those pre-wires right now. But man, get the first 5 speakers going. Get 1 or 2 high-quality subs going, properly positioned. Use an SPL meter at the very basic. You need the tools to set up. Like Scotty would say, the right tool for the right job. So calibration is everything. If you don't calibrate the best speaker system, you're not using it to its capability, and in some cases you're not going to get a good experience at all. Then you're going to be like, I spent all this money and it doesn't sound right.
Very interesting that you mentioned that, Gene, because along those lines of calibration, there are all these home theater in a box solutions out there. And obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but it will be hard to calibrate those things, no?
Well, I mean, the auto setups that they have in there, they're a mixed bag. Most auto setups, they'll get you the levels, maybe the distance right, but the EQ systems, it's kind of a mixed bag. And when you buy a home theater in a box for $800, and now with the ones with Atmos in it, realize that budget's going to be distributed now to not 1 or 2 speakers, but 5, 7, 9 speakers, and the electronics. Yeah, you're going to be in a compromise, man. These systems they don't have a lot of dynamic range. They probably would sound okay in a very small room. Like when they demo them at the department stores like Best Buy, most of the demos are done at near field.
Yeah.
That's what Bose does. Bose puts all the speakers around you 2 or 3 feet away. You're like, wow, this sounds great. But you put it in a 6,000 cubic foot room and the little 2-inch cubes are lost.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, then I think the 5.1 solution is still probably the best way to go for most people out there then.
Just to start with, you got to get your foundation right. It's like bodybuilding.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely.
You know all about that. You got to get your foundation going. You got to eat your protein. You got to do your core exercises, and you got to build from there.
Yeah.
Then when you want to start building peaks, you do that after the mass is there.
Absolutely.
So the mass in this case would be the 5.1. Build upon that. Add the back channels. Add it 7.1. Then add your height channels. But get the base right first.
That's a beautiful analogy. I couldn't have said it better, because at the end of the day, you cannot chisel what you don't have.
Exactly.
So, well, with that said, I invite you to go ahead and take a look at us at audioholics.com for much more information like this one and tons of myth busting like we like to do.
We do like to do that, hence pursuing the truth in our motto.
Feel free to share this video and let us know what you think down there, and add more comments. Let us know what other videos you would like to see. Until next time,
keep listening.